Alright, so if any of you guys if you've picked up any of my hunting apps, the big game hunting app or the blacktail hunter app, you would have heard me talking about walking creek beds or just inside the edge of a creek in the thick bush of the timber for a high chance of a close encounter with a predator. Over the years, I don't know how many times I've had close calls with grizzly bears. The majority of my close grizzly bear encounters were without a doubt from walking along the edge of a creek. It's just, and on rainy days, pouring rain, because it's the sound, the scent. You're walking up that creek bed, the air is cold from the cold water, and the wind's almost always in your face. If there's a predator on that trail, he doesn't have a clue you're there until he's right in front of you. So, one time, just a couple years ago, Mark and I, we were away on a bow hunt for stone sheep. I got lucky, I got one on that hunt. And we were riding back on our horses. Mark was just in front of me. And we're we're on the bottom of this real tight, like the mountain faces went straight up from this creek bed on the bottom. The actual flat of the creek bed across side to side was maybe 100 yards, possibly. The creek bed was just to the left about, I don't know, 5 yards, 10 yards. And it's fairly noisy from the water, right? And it's evening, and we're riding up a creek. And it's just classic, you're setting yourself up for a close encounter with a bear, or any other predator, or any other game animal, for that matter. So we're riding along, and I'm kind of half asleep, because we just hiked up this mountain, stuck an arrow in a ram, and we packed them all off, we're kind of beat, can't wait to get back, go to sleep. And Mark turns on his horse, he's riding along, he turns around, looks at me, he goes like this, point down to the creek. And I look to my left, like this, and here is about a 8.5 foot dark chocolate monster old male grizzly bear, and he's right frickin' beside us, nose to the ground, slowly moving his way down creek, rooting around in the moss and the roots and shit. And he is basically, I don't know, 12 yards, 12 paces to our left. He hasn't seen us yet, and he is about to see us in about 1/10 of a second. In those moments, you're absolutely unprepared. You don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, typically they're going to take off, but you don't know that. It's going to be one of those rare 1 in a million stories where your buddy's telling the authorities how the bear ripped your hunting partner off his horse and absolutely destroyed him before you can even get off your horse or pull your gun out of your bucking horses, panicking horses scabbard. You know what I mean? So there's always that minor chance, but there's still a chance, still there. So it adds to electricity and excitement. So anyway, the bear, those older bears, you usually don't have a problem with those guys because they're old, they're mature, they're very, very intelligent, and they know to put a distance between us is usually the wiser choice. So he did look up, he looked right into our eyes. We're just sitting there looking at each other, bink, bink. He stood there for a couple seconds, weighing out the options, and then he bolted. So as soon as he started bolting, I got off my horse and I got my backpack off and I whipped out the video camera and I just managed to tape him a little bit. And this is him right here as he took off. He's hard to tell, but if you're familiar with bears, that's a hammer grizzly bear. So moving forward, or moving backward, probably about I don't know, a handful of years earlier, before that, I was guiding my good friend Joel Colgrove from Alabama, who, take note, is a professional horseman, very, very skilled rider, thank God. And same deal. It's absolutely pouring rain out one day. I mean, pissing rain. And we're hunting moose, elk, grizzly bear. And it's early September, so the leaves are still somewhat green, and they're all still on the tall alder and the willow. And we're side hilling on this steep side hill, up burn. Pouring rain, thick leaf bushes and branches all around us, and the bottom of the draw is right beside me, 2 or 3 paces to the right, and the water is just raging through there. Like, the sound is amazing. It's loud, very, very loud, rushing water sound. And right along this trail, I don't know how to describe it. Right along the trail, pissing down rain, thick green leaves. We only got to go through this patch for about 200 or 300 yards. And all of a sudden, this great, big, dark, sow grizzly bear comes and steps onto the horse trail, probably 6 paces in front of me, walks onto the trail ahead of me, in front of my horse. She doesn't have a clue I'm right behind her ass. Joel's right behind me. He's seen everything. We've seen everything at the exact same time. She does not have a clue. We are right behind her. She's got a mouthful of grass. She's walking along feeding. And I can see her. She pulls another. And you know what? Everybody thinks, well, how come your horse didn't freak out? Well, believe it or not, the weird thing is, horses in the north, they don't freak out about grizzly bears. When I've been riding up a trail, my horse will start getting nervous, ears will perk up, and going from a moose. When the moose is ahead of us on the trail, when my horse is acting like that, I know there's a moose in front of us on the trail. Because typically when there's a grizzly bear on the trail, the horses don't really give a crap. Probably because they don't really have problems with them. They just don't seem to lose their shit with grizzly bears. They don't. This sow comes and steps on the trail in front of me, and she's just slowly walking along. I'm like, my eyeballs are probably the size of saucers, and I glance back at my buddy Joel, and he's already got the brakes on. His eyeballs are big, and there's not much you can do here. Brain's trying to take in exactly the situation you're possibly in right now and what to do next. And all of a sudden, this little fur ball about this big of a grizzly cub steps out onto the trail right in front of me. I mean, I'm looking down at this football-sized grizzly cub down at my horse's feet, and it is probably 3, 6, 7. This thing's probably 7, 8 feet in front of me and my horse. And the sow is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sow is about 6 or 7 paces away from me and her cub. It was the craziest feeling, because in about probably less than half a second, or maybe a second or two, the shit is gonna hit the fan. I don't know what to do. There's not really much you can do. I know that I probably won't even have time to get my gun out of the scabbard of my saddle scabbard. I probably don't even have time to get my gun out of the scabbard. That sow turns around, that cub says something. Possibly one of our worst experiences in the woods is about to tee off, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's a very amazing moment, because everything goes slow motion, and you're just waiting. Everything's slow motion. You're in terror. You're trying to think of what to do. Your brain's trying to fire a message to your hands, your body to move, but it's not firing any decisions. And this is all going down in less than 2 seconds. He's just like, don't. I look back, and Joel he's pulling back in his reins, and his horse starting to work back. That little cub turns around and looks up at me like this. So I'm looking at the kid. The kid's looking at me. I look at Mom. She's just standing there chewing on some grass, looking straight away. Her ass is blocking her view from me, from Joel, and myself and my horses. And that grizzly's ass is blocking her view from us. The little football sized cub is sitting there on the trail about 6 feet in front of me, looking up at me. And is the cub gonna start screaming? I don't know. So I'm looking at the cub, looking at Sal, look at Joel, and then I start to back my horse up. We're both backing our horses up away from the sow and the cub. She still hasn't seen us. And then finally got to this little part where you just back here. The horses weren't arguing, they were backing up. And the cub's just still sitting there looking at us like, what are you guys doing? We got the horses turned around and booted it down the trail, smashing through all this shit. And we rode like a pair of crazy bastards for about, I don't know, maybe 300 yards. And then we finally got out to this open meadow, and we got in the middle of the open meadow, and we stopped. And I'm like, dude, look at this. We're sitting beside each other horses, and I'm like, look at this. And my hand was literally doing this. I couldn't hold my hand steady. And as far as I know, that sow never knew we were there. She never saw us, and we got away with it. So there you go. I don't know if there's very many human beings that were 6 feet away from a grizzly cub and 6 or 7 paces from a grizzly sow and never got detected from the sow and got away without being scratched up a little bit. So there you go. That's definitely another one of my numerous crazy grizzly bear encounters in the Northern Rockies of British Columbia. Hunt stories.